Well, welcome everyone to Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross, where I am your host and we are your resource for education, connections, and collaborations. And before I start today, I want to thank our sponsors, Nathan Turner of Earnest Investing and Vibe, for these sponsored appearances that makes these Mindful Monday shows possible. So Nathan Turner, you might know him because he's known across the U.S. as the Canadian note guy. Having run several businesses, including curves and fix and flip real estate, he discovered mortgage notes back in 2009 and has since then become a leader in the industry in the private sector. So Nathan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So can you start by sharing your journey and what led you from various ventures into specializing in note investing?
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned the curves in there. That was really my first real business. And that was where, I'd done some other things, but that was really the first real business. And it was a great learning experience. We'll start with that. It was at the very beginning, we were doing really well. We had one location. It was doing well enough. We opened up a second one the year later. So this is 2004, 2005. And, if you put yourself back in those days, everything was looking good. The economy was going really well. Everything was happy until it wasn't. And it was as things kind of slowed down. We actually started doing a little bit of real estate in like 2006 and started doing some fix and flip stuff. But it was as everything started slowing down late 2007 into 2008 that I guess we recognized that when people are feeling stressed, one of the first things that they're going to cut is their gym membership. So we went from being one of the top, most populous clubs in the province in Canada down to not good at all, where it wasn't making money anymore and everything was just all going crazy. So it was kind of in that time where we had started doing some real estate and just started looking at, well, what else can we do? What are some different things that we can take advantage of? Real estate looked really great. Same kind of thing though, that kind of took a bit of a stall and we ended up being a landlord for a little bit. I liked the cash flow of being a landlord. I really didn't like anything else about it. It was a lot of work, a lot of, just managing a lot of things. And it was on the other side of the country. So I wasn't even local. If I wanted to go see the property, I had to fly out there. So it became a lot of work. And it was kind of through that process that I figured out that there was a better way. And I was introduced into this where I started buying these real estate notes. And what that means is instead of buying the property and renting it out, I'm actually just buying the mortgage instead of owning the house. It's just being the bank. So the person is making their payments, making, their regular principal and interest payment as if you would on any other mortgage. And so it was all that cash flow that I liked without having to deal with owning the house. So I didn't have to fix the roof. I didn't have to fix the toilet or anything else that comes with it. And for me, that's kind of the sweet spot. So I get all of that income without a lot of the headaches that go along with it. So that's been great. That's the short version of it, but that's kind of where that has gone.
Yeah, because it was, I believe it was the 2008, kind of when we had the housing crash.
Right. Yeah.
So that made a lot of uncertainties. So
absolutely.
Yeah, maybe you can explain a little bit more about that, concept, because the note investing, you're saying you're buying people's mortgages, which I'm sure that sounds very scary to people.
Yes.
As far as, how does somebody else own my house, but then they don't fix anything? So,
right.
Can you elaborate on that?
How does that work? Yeah, absolutely. So, it's fascinating. And, one of those things, you don't know what you don't know. And that's what I found as we got into this business is I had no idea this existed. And maybe you or some of your listeners will be able to identify with this where you've gone to the bank, you've gotten your mortgage, you're making payments, and then one day you get a letter saying, oh, by the way, now you're paying this other bank. That's what that is.
That's kind of the way of the world. We all get
exactly. But that's exactly what that is. So that other bank might be me. So instead of now paying Bank of America, US Bank, whoever you're paying, they have sold that loan over to me. And then what that means is I actually don't own the home at all. The person living in the house, they own the home, and I'm just acting as the bank. So I get to collect those monthly payments just like the bank would. And if the roof breaks, if you get a hole in the roof or something, banks don't do that kind of thing. So that's kind of the beauty of it, where I get to be in that world on the financing side instead of the property ownership side.
I was going to say, so how do you get yourself in that position? Because normally, from how I understood it, you really don't have a choice. So how do you find the mortgages to buy or back them? Because when we closed on our home in Missouri, it was less than 3 weeks and I was already paying another mortgage company.
Yeah. And it's super common. But again, on the consumer side, we don't know what's happening on the other side of that. But banks, financial institutions, they trade these loans back and forth all the time. And it's just to provide liquidity. They've loaned out $100 million, and now they need to get some of that cash back. So they'll sell some of those loans, and it could be, random. They could say anything with balance of this much or whatever the criteria is. They choose and say, okay, these ones we're going to sell as a package over to this other bank. And so then they've got more cash back in the bank themselves, so they can go back and lend it out and kind of keep churning it around. So essentially that's kind of the background of it. That's kind of how that works. When I first got started, a lot of the mortgages that I was buying were originated by a bank. So it might have been, let's say, US Bank. US Bank maybe was the one who provided that mortgage in the first place. At some point, and especially back then, nobody was making payments on their mortgage. Not nobody, but I mean, there's a large portion of the population where they couldn't make payments, where it didn't make sense to make payments because the house was worth less than what they owed. So people quit paying on their mortgage for all kinds of different reasons. Banks then are in trouble because they're not receiving anything in. So that's not good. So again, just to recapitalize on that, they would sell off those loans. So they would typically, back in those days, they would sell, again, $100 million worth to one of these large hedge fund companies. The hedge fund would do the same kind of thing. They would say, okay, we want these kinds of loans, we want these numbers, we want these areas, whatever their criteria was. Anything that fell outside of that, they would sell off to guys like me. And that's where I come in. So it's a ton of networking, going to different conferences and just getting to know people all over the country. And I would introduce myself as the Canadian note guy. I'm the guy that lives in Canada. I'll come and buy whatever notes you're looking to sell.
Yeah, that is a different world. So just to be clear, so when you're meeting people and stuff and networking, how are you do you ever meet the homeowner? Is there ever a homeowner that is not happy with their bank and mortgage and feels that you might be a better option? Is that a possibility, or?
It could be, but again, they don't actually know that the loan is being sold until after the fact.
So they couldn't choose you to say, I don't want my loan with this bank. And
no,
it has to be something that goes up for sale.
Right. It goes up for sale. I have had that several times where I ended up taking over the mortgage. And then when I talk to the borrower, there's like, oh, that bank, they were terrible because of this, that, and the other. The good news is I'm not a bank. I'm a regular guy. And so I'm far more flexible. And I honestly, I think I do a better job of helping people that are having trouble paying their mortgage than the actual banks, because I can be so much more flexible, and I can, we can wheel and deal and figure out what's going to be the best deal for them to stay in their home, continue to make payments. As long as it makes sense for me, and as long as it makes sense for them, then we can do whatever deal we want.
So that's almost kind of a whole different kind of business. So as the president of Earnest Inc., what are maybe key lessons that you've learned about leadership and, the team dynamics in your financial sector?
As far as leadership and things, you know what? We actually took a step back. When we had our curves, we had employees, we had, regular staff meetings, all those kinds of things. As we kind of went along, really, my wife and I talked about it, and we were like, you know what? We actually make the best team. So let's just do us. And we work really, really well together. I don't think that's for everybody, and that's not a judgment on anyone's marriage or anything like that. But we work really well together. So it's she and I, we run the ship. So we'll have, we're kind of like the home base. I'm more the face of it. She's a lot of the background things. But then we'll have attorneys that we work with. We have local realtors we work with, servicing companies, different vendors that all kind of piece into what we're doing. But none of them are actual employees. So I've got an attorney because we need to do a foreclosure over there. I've got a realtor over here because I'm looking to buy another loan and I want to know what the house is worth and make sure that we've got enough protection in there, enough equity. And so just kind of here, there, and everywhere. And I make sure that I'm on top of things all the time. I do it actually as I guess it's kind of like a time blocking where each day is a different focus. Not so much now, but certainly when we had the non-performers, that was, Mondays was realtor day, Tuesdays was attorney day, and kind of on until we just made sure that nothing was falling through the cracks on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so that kind of brings up another point, because like you said, not all couples can work well together in business.
Yeah.
I know it works best if you both, maybe she has skills or strengths in areas that you don't, and you can actually complement each other.
Yeah.
So in the name of self-care and mindfulness, are there routines or practices and stuff that you guys do so that maybe if something doesn't go right, it's not spilling over into your personal or your relationship?
Yeah, definitely. We consult often, like probably almost every day. But even just like on a regular basis, I've got my list over here where, for example, right now we're closing off all of our non-performing loans that we had bought a couple of years ago. So with that, and we've been doing this for a few years now, every month we'll go back and review every single one of those and just see where everything is at. What's the next steps, strategies, what we want to do going forward. So for that, that's an every month thing. We've got another project where every week we actually get together and look at potential properties we want to buy and how we would approach it and what we need for capital to get that going. And then on the other side with the fund, then we're talking about, different money raising tactics and things like that. So it's a lot of constant communication and just making sure that we're both aware of what's going on so that there's never any, secrets or anything like that. It's not, oh shoot, I better not tell her that this is going wrong. Like it's very open and we, discuss it and attack it together as much as possible.
So doing this kind of business, would you say it gives you guys more togetherness, more time freedom or to spend time together, quality time? Or
yeah. And it's interesting, when we first started, kids were really little. And so they were home and her focus has always been, take care of the kids first. She wanted to be a mom first, which is great. And then now as the kids are older and they're more self-sufficient, really what she does is they'll leave for school. Then she gets all her stuff out. She works at the kitchen table and she'll just do her thing all day. And almost always by the end of the day, before the kids get home, she puts it all away so when they get home, she can be mom again. And which is awesome. And then that gives me the flexibility as well, where, somebody needs a ride here or there or whatever, there's a play going on and there's, sports, whatever it might be, then I'm much more free to do that as well. So we've built it around a lifestyle for sure. And, for good or bad, that's the way we've built it. It's a lifestyle thing.
Yeah. There's always a learning curve too, especially when you change lanes or go to something, like totally different.
Yes.
Would you say this was a big learning curve? Would it be easy for someone if they wanted to, like a career change, work from home, something they could do together?
It is definitely a big learning curve. If you're thinking about doing that kind of thing where you're transitioning to working from home or working for yourself, make sure you talk to people that are already doing that and get the day-to-day, because I'm making it sound all nice and awesome and perfect. It's not. There's certainly challenges. There's things that we have to deal with all the time. So it's not for everyone. And that's not a reflection on you or, what you can or cannot do or anything like that. It's just personality type. Either it's something that you're going to thrive in or something you're really going to struggle with. So make sure you understand what you're getting into.
What are some of those challenges that you guys had?
Oh boy. Unexpected twists and turns. So let's go back to the curves. So, as things were going south, that was scary. And like, what do we do? And how are we going to deal with this? How are we going to deal with that? And it was a constant thing and very stressful, to the point where, where my wife was having health issues because of stress and all those kinds of things. And I mean, certainly both of us were losing sleep. Like, it was not a fun time. But, we were able to kind of pull together and make it happen together. And so that's been great. Other than that, I mean, even just, when the kids were little, I had dedicated office space, and that was tough, where the kids wanted to come in and say hi to dad. And I'm like, I'm really sorry. I've got this phone call. I can't play with you right now. And that was hard for the kids and for me to be able to kind of figure out what that balance is and, structuring the time appropriately. So there's challenges for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So would you say, because we do know how the economy times go up and down, obviously that time kind of puts you back with curves.
Yeah.
Is that such a problem when you're doing mortgage notes? Does it have as well as its up and downs, or does it stay fairly steady?
I would say it's more of what approach are you going to take? So I've been talking about the non-performing notes. That's what we did when we got started. Now, those non-performing notes, there's really not as many available. And even the ones that are available, the pricing is just not what it used to be. So that your margins are much, much different. So we've actually shifted over to, instead of looking at non-performing loans, now we're actually mostly buying performing loans where people are making regular payments. And it's a different strategy. It's a different approach. And so just understanding how that works and, what your numbers can look like if you do it differently. But with the mortgage notes, there's a lot of flexibility there. So it's not too difficult to be able to just pivot. You still need to know what you're doing, but you have a little more latitude, probably more than other industries where you can switch gears and still be in the same industry, but just a different approach.
So non-performing notes are ones that people are not able to make the payments.
Right. And when I first got started, 2009, 2010, that was all we did. That was it. There was all just
I bet there was a lot of them during that time.
A lot. Yeah.
So were you able to help maybe turn some of them around because of the ability and because you were more flexible than a bank?
Yeah. It was fascinating to see. And this is why I say I think we do a better job than a bank. Like, I would say 95% of the time, if we can start a conversation with whoever's living there, we could work something out. There's something we could do to help them stay on track and stay in the home. The only times where we actually had to foreclose on the house is if it was already vacant. That happened a lot back then. Or they'd passed away. If they died, and then there's nobody to pay a mortgage. So in those cases, we were foreclosing on an empty house instead of kicking somebody out of their home. Right. It's rare that we ever had to actually foreclose on a person. It's almost always on a house.
That is not ideal.
No, and that's not nice. It's not fun. It doesn't feel good. And so luckily we didn't have to do that very much. Occasionally, yes, and that is never a good time, but that's part of the business and you got to just deal with it.
So you've created a platform for learning through Diversified Mortgage Expo. What inspired you to prioritize education over sales pitches in this space?
Really, it comes back to personal preference. When I first started going to conferences, 2009 or so, actually, I went to a couple of different kinds. I started going to note investing conferences in 2009, and I'd gone to a couple of other personal development conferences before that. It always irked me when they would stand up there and, give a half-hour lead up to their pitch, and then all of a sudden and then at today's conference only, then you can save this and that. And I mean, again, I understand it. I understand the industry, and I get that that's part of it. But for me personally, sitting in the audience, it just always irked me. I just didn't like it. So the opportunity came along to take over this conference. It had been running 7 years, and the owners, one just decided she doesn't like being up on stage. Fair enough. The other one decided that she and her husband live in an RV, and so she's like, it just doesn't really make sense for the lifestyle. I'm like, I agree. I don't think it does either. So for me, it was a no-brainer because it's all about the networking. It was all about just getting to know more and more people that I can do deals with. And then very early on, I was like, I've never liked that pitching from the stage. I've never liked that approach. So we're just not going to do that. And that's understood. And I make sure that everybody who's speaking understands that no, you will not pitch your thing from stage. If you want to have a conversation with somebody afterwards and sell whatever you're selling, great. But you're not going to, there's no conference specials. There's nothing like that. Yeah. Just all about networking, getting together.
And I really do like that. I've belonged to a number of conferences that do that. You're taught to do that. You're trained to do that. Yeah. I've been in real estate ones too, where you got all this. Oh, great! It's normally this, but right now, you can do this, and they create that what we call FOMO. Fear of missing out. If you want to do this, you got to take advantage of it now. Yeah. And sometimes it's just like, okay, just tell me what the bottom line is. Can we get this done? Yeah. Because then they kind of like keep explaining it to give the value. Yeah. It's like, okay, I have things to do.
Right. I'm either interested or I'm not. If I'm going to buy it, I'll buy it. I will. But if I'm not, let's get on with it. What's the next thing? Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know you've faced some adversity and stuff doing all this, and we're going to get into that, but we're going to take a quick break from a word from our sponsors, and we will be right back.
Great.
Relief for PTSD, anxiety, pain, insomnia, and many other ailments. Introducing Vibe, the world's only pocket PEMF device. You place in your pocket while cooking, cleaning, relaxing, watching TV, sitting at your computer, reading, or walking. Self-contained standalone device. No drugs. No other phone or Bluetooth connections required. No monthly subscription fees. No apps to download. No Bozone. The future of medicine is in the frequencies. Come join the revolution.
Thank you very much, and we will see you next year.
So Nathan, before we get into those other topics, that looks like just such a nice, relaxed kind of atmosphere where people are making genuine connections.
That's the goal. Yep.
So can you tell us a little bit more of because you only do these expos once a year, right?
Right. Yeah.
So what can people look forward to or expect with going to that expo?
Well, we wanted to make it a fun, relaxed, easy to network type of environment. So right off the bat, so the conference is actually 2 days. The night before the conference starts, we have an axe throwing tournament. So, and that's included with your ticket. And the whole idea is you come to that. It's a really fun and relaxed environment. Nobody's that good at it. It's kind of like bowling. Like nobody's actually that good. So it's just fun, and you just have a great time hanging out. And it's just the actual icebreaker of the entire conference. So we start off with that. Then the next morning, now you already know some people because you met them last night at this activity and it was a lot of fun and you had a good time. You walk in and it's immediately you've got this room full of 250, 300 people in there, all there to learn, network. They want to grow their business. That's what they're there for. So it's you walk in and it's just today we're going to talk about this and this and this and this, and it's anything from a market research from Mortgage Bankers Association. They're going to talk about where we're at today, where they think the market is going in the future, all the way to specific strategies where, for example, this year we're going to talk about different kinds of note investing, whether you want residential properties or land or commercial properties We're going to talk about different things you can do with the notes. And everybody who's speaking, nobody's pitching anything. It's just, here's what I've done. Here's my experience. This is what you can do too. And we've got ice cream breaks. We've got, networking receptions and all kinds of things. Again, really geared to having people have an easy, relaxed way to get together and chat and make some real connections.
So if someone was looking to do this or make a change or maybe have it as their side plan B, we
Yes.
called plan B, it would be a good place for them to go because you're sharing kind of pitfalls, mistakes that you've made or what lessons you've learned, kind of sharing industry secrets with them.
Yeah, we've got one, we're going to do a panel this year where it's people that are relatively new within their first 2 years of starting in this business, and a whole panel all about what I learned in the last 2 years or the last year, whatever it is. So as they're getting started, you get the teachers there that are saying, it's so great because of this and it's so easy because of that. And then we've got these people that have just started and saying, well, yes, but, here are some of the things that I've learned. And this is, maybe some of the hard lessons they've learned and how to avoid some of the mistakes they've made. So it's a great time. We love putting it on. It's a lot of fun. And it's just, I would recommend it. I recommend going to whatever conference, whether it's this conference or another conference, those in-person actual connections, man, that makes such a difference. It makes all the difference in the world to actually be face-to-face with somebody.
Yeah, it does. Now, I would imagine in this field, you've come across a number of adversities or challenges. So how do you overcome the adversity, and especially in a challenging industry?
Oh, boy. Specifically with this industry, my worst case scenario is actually taking back the property. I try to avoid that as much as possible because when I get that property, that's where the potential liability is. Once I own the property, now I have to pay taxes. Now I have to fix anything that's broken. Now there's things I actually have to do with this house that I didn't have to worry about before. So things like, for example, when we're looking at purchasing any of the loans that we're looking to buy, the house is the backup plan. So we are looking to see what's the value of the house. What if we needed to take it back tomorrow and we had to sell it? Is the value there enough to cover my investment? Mm-hmm. The trick is, unlike regular real estate, I don't get to see the inside of the house. So I'm only doing this from, the street and looking to see what I can see from the outside. Usually the outside reflects the inside and vice versa. Sometimes the outside can look great and the inside not so much, where you get in and there's mold all over the walls and there's holes here and there and there's issues that you weren't able to foresee. So that's really the biggest risk lies in that, in somebody doesn't pay, you're not able to work something out, and now you've taken back the property. And that's where the real risk lies right there.
Yeah. Well, and then there's the human and the emotional side, especially if someone is struggling and now the house is not theirs. Have you ever had to have that interaction?
Yeah, there can be some tough conversations where I remember once where we had this lady, and it was just a sad situation where she was in default on her mortgage. And this was years ago, but she was in default on her mortgage. And I did have one conversation with her, and she told me like her husband had passed away, her son had passed away a few months later, and she was working at a grocery store now, and she just simply was not making enough money to be able to pay this mortgage, and so little that she really couldn't afford any house. So we tried working with her, and I tried contacting her so many different times and different ways to see if we can get something. I was willing to pay her to move out of the house rather than actually foreclose. If she could do that, then I can help her with, getting started somewhere else and avoid having a foreclosure process that she has to go through, that I have to go through, just the time and money and heartache that it is for everybody. Unfortunately, in that case, she quit responding. I think it was too much. We ended up having to foreclose on her. And by the time we actually completed the foreclosure, she had moved out. But it was just a hard situation. And it was sad. And this poor lady, she's just gone through such a rough time in her life. And now she's going to lose her house too.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, and there's just only so much we can do.
Yeah. And that's, I don't know, for some people, I would think that's got to be kind of tough to be able to separate that or put it aside, not have it, affect you, especially when you've done the best you can.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I'd love to just let her stay there for free, but I can't do that. I've got investors, I've got people that I need to answer to as well. So as much as that would be a wonderful thing to do, I'm just not able to.
So it's really kind of a lot of resilience and stuff on your part. Can you describe a pivotal moment in your career that taught you the valuable lesson about resilience?
I would say going back to curves where things were really not going well and everything was getting worse and worse by the day, it seemed. But I remember, sitting in my office and stressed as all get out and just, what are we going to do? What am I going to do? And I don't know where it came from, but somewhere inside me, the idea that I run the business doesn't run me. And just that shift changed everything, where it's like, no, I'm in charge. I'm the one that calls the shots here. I'm not going to just be dictated on everything that I do because this failing business is dictating what I have to do. Obviously there's still things I had to deal with, but I can be the decision maker. I'm not going to have decisions made for me. And that was just a major shift in my mindset to be able to put myself back in the driver's seat where I can be the one in control from here on out. That's how it's going to be. That was huge. That was a big deal for me.
It's a big mindset shift too. You have to really have the mindset, because it takes a lot when life keeps kind of throwing you punches and you have to get back up.
Yeah.
Or push through, however you want to say. Everybody's got their own terms for it. Yeah.
But no, I'm in charge. I'm going to be the one making the decisions. Decisions won't be made for me. That's how it is.
So I'm sure there's times when external perception doesn't match our internal reality. So what do you do when everyone around you assumes, like you're doing great, but you're not?
Yeah. I mean, I had that, even at church where people would come up and they'd comments that they'd make or something. I was the rich one or something. And I'm like, you have no idea what we're dealing with right now. And it didn't, it wouldn't help for me to say, are you kidding me? Do you know what difficulties? Like, that's not going to help. So I decided anytime that happened, whether things were going well or things were going poorly, I decided that anytime somebody said something like that, I would just take it as a compliment. They think I'm doing well. That means that whatever's going on that may not be ideal right now, I'm putting forth that I am not even that I'm not faking it, but I'm a happy person. Despite everything else that's going on, I'm okay. And I'm a happy person. That was the decision there, was just, no, thanks. Thanks for thinking that I'm doing incredibly well, even though maybe I'm not at this point.
It's kind of funny how we stereotype and judge things, because I know I've been on the receiving end. I'm sure many people have, but they see you drive a certain car or you have a certain house and, oh, well, they've got it all. Doesn't mean we're not struggling or we're not fighting hard to, keep what we have. But people just, I don't know. I think it's stereotypes. A lot of it, they just jump to conclusions without even asking.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, and knowing human nature and everything and just learning more about people as I went along. That was my decision. No, I'm just going to take that as a compliment, but thanks. Glad you think I'm doing all right.
Like that. That's a good way to do it, and just have it kind of roll off. And it's like, yep, you go right ahead.
Yeah.
So in your experience, how does mindfulness play a role in managing stress and the decision making? Because it's a fast paced investment world that you're in.
It is. And things can happen, out of the nowhere. So for example, we've got another side of the business where we're buying properties and then fixing them and selling them as affordable housing, which is great. And we love it. But it's a blind bid. So last year, I think we bid on 14 properties and we ended up winning on 10 of them, which is great. But we had 2 just at the very end of last year where we bid on 2 right in a row, and they looked great. We were really excited, and we thought this was going to be a great one so we can turn around and help somebody out. And then we lost on both of them. And it's like, what? But we were doing so well. And that doesn't make sense. We didn't change anything. And it did come as a bit of a blow. But again, then just saying, okay, so take a step back. We didn't win that. That's fine. What do we need to change? What are some lessons we can learn here? And how do we move forward? And just taking that step back and saying, no, not everything's always going to work out the way we want it to, or not as quickly as we want it to. Mm-hmm. That's fine. It is what it is today. How are we going to move forward? And it's always with that attitude of like, okay, what's next? Okay, what's next? How are we going to take the next step?
Yeah, I like that. It's like next.
Yeah.
Moving on. And it's good that way if you don't look at it as a failure, but a lesson learned. And like you said,
right.
How can you improve and move on?
Yeah.
You said a blind bid, but don't you ever hire anyone from like Fiverr to go check out the property before you put the bid in?
Yes. Yeah. The blind bid is just
into that world a little bit. And it's like, you might find it on Google Maps, but you don't know how old
yes.
that picture is. And it doesn't mean a fire or a tornado or something could
right.
happen. And maybe it doesn't even exist there anymore.
Yeah, definitely. And we always look at the property before we buy anything. We want to make sure the blind bid, meaning just that there's other people also bidding on that same one. I don't know who's bidding what. So I'm putting in my best bid and we'll see what happens. And then we lost 2 in a row.
I got you.
That's crazy. We were winning everything. What's going on? And so that was, just interesting. Just, okay, so, all right. How do we learn from that? What do we do going forward?
It's definitely different. So can you share a specific challenge you faced while managing your assets for accredited investors and how you navigated through it?
Sure. Let's see. Well, specifically, again, this is going back a little bit. Like I said, we've shifted gears where we've got a fund model now where people are investing into the fund. It actually creates a lot more stability. So it lessons learned. So we've changed up the model, so it makes it a lot easier. But going back, we're dealing with non-performing loans. One of the challenges with non-performing is it's really unknown where it's going to go. For example, I'll buy a loan and I think, all indications show that the person's living there, they're going to start making payments again, and we'll have we call it a reperforming loan, where now they're making payments again. So it happened more than a few times where, I think it's going to be going this direction, or the total opposite where, I think it's a vacant property. It looks like we're going to do a foreclosure, then we'll resell the house. And then it just all of a sudden shifts gears where it could be the total opposite. I thought we were going to foreclose and, actually there's somebody living there and they want to make payments. Great. Or I really thought that they were going to make payments. And then all of a sudden we find out it's totally the opposite, or there's nobody there. And now we're going to have to foreclose. So with the investors, what that means is it's really hard to manage any expectations. I think it's going to go this way, all the indications are, and I can put in, all those kind of qualifiers, but what's their expectation? And then how is that going to be managed when all of a sudden it's changed directions and it's not what we thought it was going to be? And so just, again, keeping that open line of communication where it's like, okay, this is where we think it's going to go. And then as it changes direction, we say, okay, it's changed. Given this new circumstance, this is what we foresee. But again, I can't guarantee any timelines. I don't know for sure. Depends on how long it takes for this, that, and the other to happen. A lot of things that are out of our control. So given all those parameters, I just want to give you the heads up. This is what we're looking at. There's some different possibilities.
Right.
And so just, again, managing as you go. And that's, it's a moving target. So it's never an easy thing, but yeah.
So you really have to stay on top of it and be able to pivot.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So what advice would you give then to aspiring investors looking to enter the note investing arena today?
I would say, first of all, do your homework. It's not a commercial for myself. I don't teach, but I can certainly refer to some colleagues and friends that do teach the business. But I would highly recommend getting some education in it because it's not real estate. And coming from a real estate background myself, so many people come from real estate into note investing thinking that it's the same thing. It's not. It's not. The real estate is our backup plan. It's our in case of. So that's part of the business is the real estate. It's adjacent to that real estate, but really it's a finance game. So you have to understand finance. You have to understand the rules that are in place with financing, especially with mortgages. Different states have different rules, different setups, how you're borrowing money. If you're borrowing money from investors, like there's a lot that goes into that. So make sure that you understand the rules of this game because it's not the same as that other game that you used to play.
Yeah. And that brings me to my other point. As an expert, what common misconceptions do you encounter regarding mortgage notes and private investments?
Probably one of the big ones is just that, it's all sunshine and rainbows. and I've done this too, where I'm talking about how great it is. It's great because I love doing it. And that's not to say it's not without challenges. Things happen, surprises come up. There are things, yes, you can certainly lose money in this. So just understanding the whole picture is a big part of it. So if you're aspiring to get into it, definitely get some education and then go to a couple of different conferences. There's a few that are out there specifically for note investing, but go to those conferences and learn as much as you can, meet with some of the people that are in the business and then find out what avenue you want to take because there's different directions depending on what your focus is, what your priorities are.
So can you tell me why you do love what you do?
To me, it's all about the game. I love the game. I part of it, honestly, is that it's a little bit different and that most people have not heard of it. And to me, that's just kind of fun. I like to be different. I was remembering earlier when I was in junior high, when I was like 13 years old, for whatever reason, I decided it was my trademark look. I would wear a safety pin in my shirt. Why? I have no idea. It was just a thing that I like to do just to be different.
Conversation starter?
I guess. I don't know. If I can go back to the mind of a 13-year-old boy, me, I don't know. But it was just kind of my thing. And so because it was different. And so that, I don't think that's really gone away all the way. I like to be different. So that's part of it. But the business itself it's just a lot of fun. It's so much is about relationships and networking. So that's a lot of fun for me it's a really good group of people. You don't have, one of the misconceptions out there is, we're out there trying to take people's houses and we're foreclosing and evicting people. Not at all. Not at all. The vast majority of people that are in this business all want to help people stay in their home and make payments again. So it's just a good group of people to be around. A lot of fun. You hear all kinds of really fun stories, and yeah, it's just a good group.
Like an extended family.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you and your wife have any particular self-care or things you do to keep yourselves kind of grounded or focused? Because I'm sure things get a little hectic and crazy every now and then. Yeah. I mean, how do you get yourself recentered and focused without losing it?
So if I look around my office, I've got posters over here, like a kind of a vision board thing. And then I've got like a picture of the truck that I want to buy. And I've got different kind of motivational things. My wife has the same thing up in our bedroom and written on the bathroom mirror, quotes that she likes and motivational things here, there, and everywhere. And then we actually we'll say to each other, okay, 5 minutes. And we'll take 5 minutes and just look through and read some of the things that we've written, look at some of the pictures that we've put up or whatever that might be. Just again, to kind of bring yourself back into that space of okay, this is where we're going. These are the goals we've got for ourselves. Envision it, really see what that looks like. And then, okay, now let's go ahead, start the day.
Yeah, which makes my point, because a lot of people think mindfulness and self-care, ooh, bubble baths, woo-woo stuff, whatever. But I'm right. You need to. I don't care if it's business, personal, spiritual, whatever.
Yeah.
It's that, staying connected and true to who you are and being the best version of yourself. So
yeah, and that's the other part of it. We'll read through all those things, look at all those things, we'll say a prayer, and then, okay, let's start. Here we go. Nice. And it's great. We'll love it.
That is nice. So finally, looking ahead, what are your goals for both Earnest Inc. and the future of the Diversified Expo, Mortgage Expo?
So Diversified Mortgage Expo, It's a controlled growth. So we took it over in 2023. Between 23 and 24, there was a 20% increase in attendance. We want to up that again for 2025, another 30%. So that would land us right around 300 people. That's about as many people as we want to come to it. It's big enough that there's lots of people to talk to, but small enough that you can actually talk to everybody. So that's kind of the idea behind that. That's as far as like growth and the goals for that. That's it. I'm not trying to sell anything. We're not trying to, do anything extra with that. Really, it's just about coming together and meeting up with people. So right around 300 people, that's a pretty good number. That's what we're shooting for. On the fund side, we are raising capital right now for that. So we're raising up to $5 million. Once that's done, we anticipate that being probably summer or early fall. And then we'll start our second fund. We'll do another $5 million. Everything that we're doing is with the 5-year goal of having enough income to finish off our own portfolio, where we've bought enough notes for ourselves that we've got enough passive income coming in, more or less passive, that then we can, if we want, we can shut down the fund and, say thank you very much to the investors and have that shut down. We may or may not do that. We'll see where we're at in 5 years, but the whole thing is within that 5 years to be autonomous and to be financially free, where we're not dependent on anybody else for our income. So everything is pointing towards that goal.
Any plans of it making a family business? Or
we've got 3 kids. I've tried, and not one of them is like, yeah, Dad, let's do that. No. So I don't know. I think that may change as they get older and understand a little bit the value of having regular income coming in without as much effort going towards it. We'll see.
See what happens. Everybody's got to find their own path, and it seems like you have found yours.
Yeah.
So how can our audience either support these initiatives or get involved or learn how they can do more? What is the best way?
Best thing is to go to the website, earnestinvesting.com. That's got more information about our fund, if that's something you're interested in doing, or there's also a link there to Diversified Mortgage Expo. You can learn about that if that's something you're interested in doing, or there's a contact page there. Feel free to reach out and let's have a chat. I'm more than happy to spend, half hour, an hour with you, just answering questions or helping you get started. It's fun for me to help people get on their way on wherever they want to get.
Oh, absolutely. And so you're in Canada, but where are your expos held? Are they in Canada or do you hold them in the States?
No, everything I do is in the U.S. I live in Canada, but everything's U.S. based. So the expo is in Nashville, Tennessee. Next one's coming up May 2nd and 3rd. So we're busy preparing for that and making all the plans for that. It's going to be fun. So
are they always in Nashville, or you just or you change locations?
We've settled on Nashville. We like kind of the central location of it. Having done conferences in different time zones, central time zone's a nice one. Mm-hmm. At the very most, somebody's only 2 hours off. That's nice. So that's a lot of thinking behind that. But yeah, and Nashville is just a ton of fun. It's just a great city. So that's fun too.
Do you know where the person has traveled the farthest to come to your expos?
I don't think we've asked that. We'll ask that this year. It might be me.
I was curious because I've done some real estate investment where people are coming in from Australia or other places, because just because they're in other countries doesn't mean they can't, do stuff in the U.S. So I was just wondering.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm living proof of that. I live in Canada, but everything I do is in the U.S. So absolutely. You can do it. It doesn't, people talk about investing in your own backyard. And I say, yeah, that's what I do. I just have a really big backyard.
It's a very big backyard. Yeah, you have a bigger backyard. You have more space. Yeah. You have a lot more space up there.
Right.
Nathan, this has been absolutely wonderful. We have got a few minutes left. What's the things you want to leave the audience with the most today?
Oh, my message, anyone. So on the mindfulness thing, I would say take control. I don't mean that in like a controlling way, but I mean that as an encouraging, you are you. You can do this. Whatever you decide, you can actually do that. I remember that years ago, where I think I'd been told that as a kid, but I didn't really come to appreciate that until at least into my 20s and 30s. But you really can do whatever you want to do. Whatever you set your mind to, you can accomplish it. So I'm a big, big believer in that. And I've been living that. We put together our plans for what we wanted to do in this business in 2014. So a little over 10 years ago. And it was, I want to do this and this and this and this. And that's exactly what we're doing. It came from one conversation coming out of frustration where things aren't going right. And my wife said, okay, so what do you want to do? And that was it. For the next 4 or 5 hours, we said, okay, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. And that's what we're doing now. So you can absolutely do that. Just take control and just do it. Just go forward.
And it's so much nicer when you can work with your other half on it and you have that support and you work through it together. Because like you said, you guys went through tough times with curves. Life is always throwing things at us. But I love how you've been able to pivot and expand and help others get to that same place.
Yeah, we love doing that. I like helping people getting started in the business. It wasn't that long ago that I was getting started. 2009 wasn't that long ago when I was first introduced to this, and I've learned and grown since then. And so I'm happy to help people get going.
Wonderful. Well, Nathan, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today and sharing all of your nuggets and wisdom. Because, yes, I knew some things about real estate and tax liens, mortgage notes. That was a new one.
Yeah. No, my pleasure. Very happy to be here.
So thank you so much for being here. And everybody, if this is anything that is of interest to you, it's definitely another avenue you can take. Please reach out to Nathan. He is obviously very knowledgeable, very passionate about it. And as you can see, easy to talk to. So definitely reach out to him. So thanks again. And we will see everybody next week.
Thanks so much.